Okay, good evening, everyone. So in the last classes, we completed up to Elastic Block Store, right? Which is a block-based storage service. So today we will go with another storage service, which is a simple storage service. And in general, that service is referred as S3. So from each term, they took the S. Totally, there are 3 S's. So they named it as a S3 service. So what is the type of the EBS? I mean, what kind of storage it is? That is a block-based storage, which we can use that storage for your EC2 instances, right? So coming to this S3, S3 is an object-based storage. S3 is an object-based storage. What is the meaning of object-based storage? Which will allow you to only store the objects. Object means it can be any kind of a file, like images, documents, softwares, anything you can store. So you can compare this S3 with something like Google Drive or something. Whatever the use case of the Google Drive, in the same way we can use the S3. You cannot install any operating system in the S3. You cannot use S3 as a storage for your EC2 instance. That's just an object-based storage, which will allow you to store any kind of an object. Not only that, we can store the objects and you can share with anybody, or you can keep them as a private objects also. Basically, the S3 is an object-based storage, which will provide you highly available and highly scalable object-based storage, which is highly available and highly scalable. Object-based means it only allow you to store the objects. Like you can store some files, that's it. You cannot use S3 as a storage for your EC2 instance. So if it is a storage for your EC2 instance, means it has to support operating system installation. It has to support the software installation and everything, right? But the object-based storage only allows you to store your objects. Apart from that, you cannot install any kind of a softwares or anything. And this is a highly available and highly scalable. So everybody knows, like, availability means the storage will be available like all the time, like 24/7, 365 days with a minimum downtime. Like very few seconds or few minutes, the service is not accessible. But what is the meaning of highly scalable? Highly scalable. What is the meaning of scalability? Increasing or decreasing, right? And also here we can use a term called, which is a highly scalable unlimited storage. We can use another term called unlimited storage. Let us say if we have a requirement of storing 100 GB, you can use that S3. Over a period of time, if you would like to store like terabytes of data without any modification, you can store the data. S3 supports unlimited storage of objects. You can store like millions of objects, and each object might be 1 GB, 1 TB, that doesn't matter. Even though it is providing you the unlimited storage, there is one limitation, that each object should not exceed the 5 terabyte in size. So the limitation is only the size of each object, but altogether you can upload unlimited data. Altogether you can upload unlimited data. Let us say you have 100 files. Each file, let us say 4 terabyte in size. You can upload all the 100 files, which is 4 terabyte each. So totally you can store up to 400 terabyte. And in the EBS, whenever you create the EBS storage with 100 GB or 200 GB, we can call that storage as a volume, right? But here, whatever the objects we store in the S3, all the objects will be stored in a container called bucket. We call the container in which we store all the data is called as a bucket. In the Google storage, we call that as a drive, right? Google Drive. In the same way here, we call that as a bucket. All the objects will be stored in a container called bucket. So we have to create the bucket like how we created the EBS volume. And in that bucket, we have to store all the objects. So is there any charges for creating a bucket? There is no charges for creating the bucket. You will be charged based on how much data you are storing into that bucket. If you store 1 GB of data, you will be charged for 1 GB. If you store 100 GB, then you will be charged for 100 GB. Is it a free tier eligible? Yes, it is eligible for the free tier, but the limitation is up to 5 GB storage. Up to 5 GB storage space is eligible for free tier. That means if you store up to 5 GB of data, Amazon will not charge you. But for the practice purpose, 5 GB is more than enough. Like to upload the data, to download, to secure it, to share. Just a few KBs of file is enough for us, right? So 5 GB is more than enough for our practice purpose. We can utilize the 5 GB to complete all the practicals on S3. So have you ever heard about like the term called durability? What is the durability? So S3 provides 99 point, total there will be 9 nines after dot, or totally we can say 11 nines. If you count all that, there will be 11 nines. S3 provides 99.99% of durability. The meaning of that is in a given year or on an average, you might be losing 0.80 and 1% of data. If something went wrong, there is a possibility that maximum you can lose 0.80 and 1%. So in a general way, like to understand it better, assume that you are storing like 10,000 objects. If you are storing 10,000 objects in S3 bucket, so on an average, to lose one object, it will take 10 million years. Based on that 99.99% of durability, for an example, if you are storing 10,000 objects in an S3 bucket, there is a possibility that you might lose one object in a 10 million years. In a given, if you take the 10 million years, for every 10,000 objects, you will lose only one object on an average. So how they will provide that much durability is, whatever the object you store into the S3 bucket, they will store all the objects across multiple data centers in the same region. Technically, we can call it as multiple facilities. They call each and every data center as a facility, and they will store all your data. Let us say you upload one image. So on an average, let us take an example like if I upload one image, that image will be stored across minimum 3 availability zones. If one availability zone goes down, like completely got collapsed, and if they are unable to recover the data also, they can recover the data from the other availability zone. That's how they can provide this much percentage of durability. So whenever we create the S3 bucket, to store your objects, we have to give a name to the S3 bucket. So S3 bucket can be used to store the objects and to share the objects also. To store the objects and to share the objects. Like I will store all my objects in one S3 bucket, and I can share that object with anybody, or I can share with a specific people also. Like in the Google Drive, you can upload all your files into one Google Drive, and you can make that entire drive as a public. or you can share with only few people, like by adding their email addresses, right? In the same way, you can secure your data and you can decide with whom you would like to share your data. So to store all the objects, we must require an S3 bucket. Like in the EBS storage also, first we have to create the volume, and in that volume, all your data will be stored, right? In the same way here, first we have to create the S3 bucket. While we are creating the S3 bucket, we have to give a name to the S3 bucket, and the name must be unique. The name must be unique across the globe. Do you guys guess why that bucket name must be unique? Because the bucket will be accessible using the browser as a website. If you and me both are using the same bucket name, the accessibility URL will be the same, right? To avoid that kind of a conflict, we have to use a unique bucket name across the globe. Just example, let us say if I use my bucket or my bucket one. So the accessibility URL of the bucket will be my bucket one dot something something. So if someone is using the same bucket name, there will be a conflict. So no two buckets will have the same website name, right? In the same way, to maintain the accessibility, the Amazon's S3 bucket name must be unique. Not only that, we have to follow some rules while we are creating the bucket. And we call that as S3 naming rules. Whenever we are creating an S3 bucket, we have to follow some rules, which we call it as S3 bucket naming rules. What are those rules are? The first rule is the length of the name, the length of bucket name. Length of the bucket name. Can I create a name with only one character like A? Then what is the minimum number of characters must exist in a bucket name? The bucket name must contain 3 to 63 characters. So bucket name must contain 3 to 63 characters. That means you cannot create a bucket with a name which is less than 3 characters and which is more than 63 characters. So if I create a bucket like AN, which is invalid. If I do like ABC, as per this rule, this is valid. But if already someone created the bucket name with ABC, you cannot create. And basically the most important rule will be the bucket name must be unique across the globe. The bucket name should not be unique only in your account. Bucket name must be unique across the globe. Like if I have the bucket with one name, that name cannot be used by any person in their own accounts also. Across all the accounts, the bucket name must be unique. And then bucket name should not contain uppercase characters. Like capital letters, you cannot use. The bucket name can contain lowercase letters, numbers. Can I use some special characters? Yes, you can use, but there are some restrictions. You can use dot and hyphen. You can use dot or hyphen. Bucket name can contain lowercase, numbers. We call it as a dot, that is called as a period, which is called as a dot. Dot is called as a period, and hyphen, which is dash. Also, no bucket name should start or end with the special characters. I can say that every bucket name must start and end with either lowercase letter or number. It means you cannot start a bucket name with a dot or hyphen, or the bucket name should not end with dot or hyphen. Bucket name should not contain two consecutive periods. That means you cannot use two dots simultaneously, like my dot dot bucket, which is invalid. Example, this one, like my dot dot bucket, which is invalid because it contains two consecutive dots. So first, I will show you some examples of the invalid bucket names. Examples of invalid bucket names. Whatever the names I'm going to write here, those are the examples for invalid bucket names. The first rule is the uniques, right? So you cannot decide at this point of time. And then the bucket name must contain minimum 3 characters, right? So if I create a bucket with AS, which is less than 2 characters, so which is invalid. And then bucket name should not contain any uppercase characters, right? So if I create my S3 bucket, which is invalid because it contains uppercase letter. What about this one? My dot S3 bucket, is it valid or invalid? It's a valid. But what if I create like this? Invalid because you cannot use two consecutive dots. And then you cannot create a bucket like this also because it starts with a special dot. Bucket name must start with either a lowercase letter or a number. And at the same time, this also invalid, which ends with a dot. Can I use like this? Yes, you can use. Because I said like only you cannot use two consecutive dots, but you can use two consecutive periods. So based on this, you can identify what are the valid bucket names and everything, right? So the same thing we will observe at the time of creating the S3 bucket also. So can you guys mention some kind of most popular bucket name? Let us say if I try to create bucket, do you guys think like, is it available to create? No, because that is most commonly used term, right? Test bucket. So if I try to create the test bucket, it will give an error like bucket name already exists. So now what we do is, let us create a S3 bucket in Northern Virginia region. Let us create a bucket in Northern Virginia region and observe the naming rules while creating it. While creating the S3 bucket, whatever we discussed, that we can observe. So this S3 has a lot of features that we can discuss one by one. First, we will try to create the S3 bucket. We will try to upload one object, and then we will see how to access and all the things. Then we can see about some storage classes. Okay. So now let us go to our Amazon account. This is our Amazon account. To navigate to the S3, just type S3 in the search box. So it will gives you the S3 service, which is a scalable storage in the cloud. Click on the S3 service. So it will takes you to the dashboard of S3 service. Okay, so here you can see an option called create bucket. You can use this, or on the left side, you can click on these 3 lines. So you can click on buckets. So it will show you the list of all S3 buckets available in your Amazon account. So in which region we are planning to create? But here it is showing global, right? But it is not allowing me to select Northern Virginia region. Is this a global service? It is not a global service. Wherever you are storing the data, that will not be a global service. But why it is showing global is, from this page, you can create the S3 bucket in any region. While you are creating the S3 bucket, it will ask you that in which region you are planning to create. That is the advantage with the S3 bucket. If you go to EC2, and if you open the EC2 service, it will only show the list of instances running in that specific region. If you would like to check in another region, you have to change the region. But in the S3, you can see the list of all S3 buckets available across all the regions in a single place. That is the advantage. Okay. So now here, there is an option called create bucket. Click on create bucket. And while we are creating this, we can observe all the rules. And the basic rule is bucket name must be unique and must not contain space or uppercase letters. Okay, now what I do is I will try to create a bucket with just a 2-character name, AN, and I will scroll down to the bottom. Just I will try to click on create bucket. What is the error we got? Bucket name must be between 3 and 63 characters long. So you cannot create a bucket with less than 3 or more than 63 characters. Okay, if I use ABC, what is the error? Bucket with the same name already exists. Someone already created a bucket with ABC name. So we cannot create. Okay. So now what I do is I will use a capital letter. What is the error? It should not contain any characters. Okay. So now I will use all lower cases, my dot, S3 dot. What is the error? Bucket name must not end with dash or period. In other terms, we can say that the bucket name must end with either a number or a letter, character. Okay, so my S3 dot bucket, it is already existing, right? Okay, so what else we can check? Okay, in the rules, what all we have checked? We haven't checked this one, right? 2 consecutive things. Bucket name must not contain 2 adjacent periods, but you can use hyphen, double hyphen also, it will not give you any error. Okay, so for uniqueness, what I do is I will use a bucket called my first bucket. Obviously, that will be already existing. For uniqueness, I will use today's date at the end, 27 June 2022. Just for uniqueness, today I will add the today's date. So that I guess there is a very less chance that already someone created the bucket with the same name. So I will use this as a name. And then what is the region we are planning? Northern Virginia. So in this AWS region, you can select the required region. In which region you would like to create the S3 bucket, that you have to select, so that whatever the data you upload into the S3 bucket will be available in Northern Virginia data center. That will be stored in Northern Virginia data center. And don't change any options right now. Later we can discuss about each and every option individually. So ownership, all these things. But for now, just scroll down to the bottom and just click on create bucket. Our first bucket got created. So here you can see. So this is the name of the S3 bucket. And we created the S3 bucket in Northern Virginia region. And what is the access by default? Bucket and objects not public. If I upload any object into this S3 bucket, that objects will not be public by default. That means nobody can access the bucket. And the creation date you can see here. Now, what I do is I will upload one object into the S3 bucket. Upload an object. It can be anything, that doesn't matter. Upload an object into the newly created S3 bucket. And while uploading, use all default settings. Don't change any setting. Select the object and upload it. You can upload any object like note, text document, image, or whatever it is. So how to upload an object is, I will try to upload one simple image so that we can see, are we able to access that image like publicly or not. So to upload any object, the first thing is, first go to your Amazon S3 service. Go to your Amazon S3, click on the buckets, and you might have like multiple S3 buckets in your account. Not a single bucket, you might have 10 buckets or 20 buckets. So click on the bucket into which you would like to upload the object. Click on the bucket and you can see you don't have any objects in this bucket. This is newly created S3 bucket and we don't have any objects in that particular S3 bucket. And you can see there is one option called upload, right? Click on the upload. Click on the upload. So you can drag and drop the objects here, or you can click on add files and you can select the file. Before that, before adding it, here you can see some information, right? What is that? Add the files and folders you want to upload to S3. To upload a file larger than 160 GB, use AWS CLI, SDK, or Amazon S3 REST API. What is the meaning of that? Whenever you are trying to upload more than 160 GB file, you have to use CLI, SDK, or some other API tools. You cannot upload using the browser because it has a feature called multi-part upload that we can discuss later. Okay, click on add files and you can select any object, any image or whatever it is, that doesn't matter. Let me select any image. Okay, so now here, just don't change any options. Click on upload. So we uploaded one object with all default settings, right? So we uploaded one object and you can see that object is available in your S3 bucket, right? And here there is one new column you can see, storage class. Whenever you upload any object into the S3 bucket, by default, that object will be stored into the standard storage class. So is there any other storage classes available on S3? Yes, we have a different storage classes available. Each and every storage class is designed for a unique use case that we can discuss. So this is the object which we uploaded, right? Click on the object. Click on the object and you can see the information about the object which we uploaded. And the size of the object, type of the object, key means the name of the object, in which region the object is, who is the owner, everything you can see. So here there is one URL called object URL, right? So what is that object URL? This is the object URL. Object URL is the URL which can be used to access the object. So here, this is object URL. Whenever you upload any object, every object will get an object URL. What is URL? Universal resource locator, like website name is there, right? Yahoo.com. That is also URL, right? Okay. So if you observe the URL, what exactly you can identify here? This is the bucket name. This is the bucket name. This is common for any bucket. And then this is the object. So by using this particular URL, we are trying to access the selected object from this particular bucket. So if you and me both are using the same name for the buckets, here is the problem. Both will get the same URL, but the URLs to be unique. That's why Amazon will not allow the same name for multiple buckets. But why they don't allow uppercase letters? Why they don't allow uppercase letters? So the website names are there, right? This is called as URL, right? Technically, we can call them as a domain names. The domain names are not compliant with uppercase characters. The standard domain name looks like, the website name looks like with lowercase characters. That's why Amazon don't allow you to use uppercase characters. Okay. So here, if I use this URL, can I access the object? So object URL will be generated by S3 once we upload the object into S3 bucket. Object URL is used to access the objects. But by default, all the objects uploaded into the S3 bucket are available as private objects. What is the meaning of a private object? Anonymous users cannot access it. Google.com website is there, right? That is available as a public. Anybody can read the data. Private means the data or the object is not available for anybody. So whenever you upload any object into the S3 bucket, that object will be uploaded as a private object by default. By default, the object will be uploaded as a private object. So nobody can access that objects by default. But as an administrator, we have a login, right? We have the necessary permissions and you can see what is the object and everything. Now what I do is I will try to access the object using the object URL as an anonymous user, like not a root user or an AWS user. I will try to access the object using the object URL, like how we access the websites and everything. So this is the object URL. I will open a browser and I will try to access the URL of that uploaded image. So because it is a private object, we will get access denied error. Because the object is a private, we will get access denied error. So let me open a new tab, and if I enter the object URL, I will get access denied. Because that object is not available to access from anywhere across the globe. And that object is not available for anybody. But being a root user, how can we log in? How can we access the object? Log in with a root user or an IAM user, that doesn't matter. You must have permission on S3. Select the image and just you can click on open. So image will be loaded. Because here already I logged in as a user and I can authenticate and I can provide my permissions. But as an anonymous user, you cannot. While you're accessing google.com or yahoo.com, are you logging in into that? No, because the websites are publicly accessible. So in the same way, the object is private. So without providing your username and password, you cannot access. In other terms, we can say that by default, all the objects in S3 bucket are private. Even the bucket is also a private. Now what I would like to do is convert the object into public object. Public object means that object can be accessed by anybody. Anybody can access the object. No need to provide any username or password. So how can we make any object as a public is, there is a concept called ACL. By using ACL, we can convert any object into public. But if you try to convert any object into public, the default settings of the bucket will not allow you to make the object as a public. I will show you one thing. So while creating the bucket, have you observed anything? I think I haven't showed you anything, right? Just directly we scroll down to the bottom and we created the bucket. So here we have given some name, and while creating the bucket, what is the option selected by default? ACLs disabled. But to convert any object into public, we require ACL concept, right? But is ACL available on our bucket? No. So first thing, we have to enable the ACL. And then, so here is the option. What is this option? Block all public access is selected. What is the meaning of that is, if this option got selected on your S3 bucket, no object will be or will become a public. What will happen if I enable, if I uncheck this one? All will not become public. If I unselect this option, the bucket will allow you or administrators to make any object into public. If I disable this option, if I uncheck this option, it will permit you to make any object into public. If I deselect this option, it will not make any object into public. It will allow the administrator to convert any object into public. So on our default bucket, ACLs got disabled and block all public access got enabled, right? So we have to roll back those two options. So because of by default on every S3 bucket, ACLs disabled and block all public access enabled. So we cannot convert any object into public object. So what we have to do is, in order to convert any object into public, first we have to enable the ACL, and then we have to disable this public access enabled option. So what are the steps we have to do is, first enable ACL on S3 bucket, and then disable block all public access. You might got a question like, once I disable the block all public access, automatically the object might become public, right? So once we disable these two, then we will try to access the same object using the object URL, which will give you the same error message. Then convert the object into public. Without doing this, you cannot make any object into public object. So first we will disable the first we will enable the ACL, and we will try to access the object, which is not possible. Then we will try to disable this one. Then again, we will try to access the object, which is not possible. Then we can convert this. Or after enabling the ACL, without disabling this option, we will try to convert the object into public. Again, you will get an error. Okay, all possible ways we will try, and then we can convert that object into public using these steps. Okay, so here, let me go back to our S3 bucket. This is our S3 bucket, right? So this is the object which you would like to convert into public. Generally, to convert any object into public, we have to select the object, click on actions, and here you can see one option called make public using ACL, which is not available to click, right? Because the ACLs got disabled on your S3 bucket. So how to enable the ACLs on any S3 bucket is click on your S3 bucket. Then there is an option called permissions tab. Click on the permissions tab. Then just scroll down. What is this one? But here it is not allowing me the edit option, right? Then how to do that? Here there is no edit option to enable. So how can we do that? So here there is an object ownership option, right? Click on edit. Then you will get an option like, would you like to disable or enable? By default, the ACLs got disabled. So click on ACLs enable. Select ACLs enable and select the checkbox that I acknowledge that the ACLs will be restored. That means the ACL service or option will be enabled on your S3 bucket. Then click on save changes. So on our S3 bucket, ACLs got enabled. So can I convert the object into public using ACL? Yes, you can, but there is another option enabled on the bucket which will prevent you from converting this object into public object. Let me give it a try. Select the object, go to actions. I got this feature, right? Let me click on this. Let me click on make public. I got error. For more information, see the error column in the fail to edit table below. This one. If I click here, access denied. But I am the root user. But why I got access denied error? Because on the bucket, block all public access got enabled. Because of that, it will not allow you to convert any object into public object. So in these steps, we are done with enable ACLs. Now we have to disable block all public access option. So for that, again, click on your bucket. Go to same option called permissions tab. This is the option. Block public access. What is that? Block all public access is on, right? Click on edit under block public access settings. Deselect or uncheck that and click on save changes. Click on save changes and it will ask you to enter the confirm. Type the confirm and click on confirm. What this option will do? Does it enable all public access on your bucket? No. No. Let us say I locked one room. So you cannot enter that, right? If I gave you the key, automatically the door will be opened. Automatically, no. You have to open it, right? The same thing. Just we are giving the permission. The bucket will allow you to convert any object into public object. But it will never convert any object into public automatically. Let us say I have 100 objects. Out of those 100, I would like to make only 2 objects as a public objects. The remaining 98, I would like to keep as private only. So if I disable that option, what will happen there is the bucket will allow the administrator or the uploader, whoever is uploading, they can make that object as a public object. So you got a doubt like, because I disabled that option, that will convert that object into public object, right? So let me try to access the object URL. Still, we will get the access denied because still the object is not yet public. So as of now, we enabled the ACL and we disabled the block all public access option. And now we have to make the object into public object. How to do that is go to the bucket and select the object which you would like to convert into the public. Click on action and then select make public using ACL. Make public using ACL. And then click on make public, and we got successfully edited public access. Now this object became a public, and now we can use that particular URL to access the object. Anybody can use that URL to access the object. There will be no restriction because the object is a public object. The public files can be accessed by anybody. There is no restriction. But the private files can be accessed by a limited people. Even the Google Drive, whatever already we are using, that Google Drive is not accessible by everybody, right? Whatever the emails I added, only they can access the data, whatever is available in the Google Drive. But if I convert that Google Drive into public, and if I share the URL, anybody can access. But I didn't share that drive like a public. If it is a public, anybody can access the objects using the URL of the drive. Okay. So now here, whatever the objects you can store, all the objects will be stored into the bucket. And here, to make that uploads and downloads as a quick, Amazon is offering you another feature called multi-path upload. Have you ever heard about like multi-path upload? Okay. Multi-path upload. Basically, we don't do that multi-paths and everything. Everything will be automatically taken care by Amazon. Let us say if you are uploading more than 10 GB file, automatically Amazon will upload the object using this multi-path upload feature. What is this multi-path upload feature is? If you are uploading any object, that will be divided into multiple parts, and the multiple parts can be uploaded simultaneously. Once they got uploaded, they will be combined together and they will be available as a single object. For understanding purpose, let us say I'm uploading 10 GB file. Amazon has, let us say the upload has, or the feature, upload feature has the capability of, at a time, it can upload only 1 GB of data. And for every 1 GB of data, it can take 1 minute of time. So to upload 10 GB file, how much time it will take? 10 minutes. If we are using multi-part upload feature, and if it divide that entire 10 GB into 10 different parts, and it can upload all the 10 parts simultaneously, each 1 GB, so it will take 1 minute. The entire 10 GB will be uploaded in 1 minute, and then to combine it and to split it, it might take few seconds of additional time. So with less time and with high speed, you can upload the object. By using the multi-part upload feature, we can upload the large size objects as a multiple parts so that we can reduce the upload time. By using the multi-part upload feature, large size objects can be uploaded as multiple parts, and the upload speed will be improved. And while we are uploading the object, we have seen one message that if you are uploading more than 160 GB, you have to use some CLI and all the things, right? The reason is the browser doesn't support that much size of the objects. What is the actual size of the object? What is the minimum size of the object? 5 TB in size. Every object can be maximum 5 terabyte, but using the browser, you cannot upload. If we are uploading the object which is more than 160 GB in size, individual file. If every file is 1 GB and if you're uploading like 100 files, you can upload using the browser itself. If the individual object size is more than 160 GB in size, then we need to use AWS CLI or SDK or other REST APIs. This REST API means it will comes into other some third-party tools. There are a lot of third-party tools available like S3 browser, or even you can use WinSCP to upload your objects. You can use any kind of a tool instead of a browser, because they will use multi-part upload feature. Even if you are using some kind of APIs to upload the object, if the APIs are the older APIs, if it doesn't support the multi-part upload feature, then you will get an error like the object size exceeded the limit. So always we have to use the latest APIs, but generally the APIs can be used by the developers. We don't use those APIs, SDKs and everything. So we have a lot of third-party tools available. Out of those, the most popular is S3 browser. This is the one. You can download the tool. And by using that, you can upload and you can download the files from the S3 bucket like this. Okay, like this, there are n number of tools available. Like WinSCP is also a tool. You can upload and download the objects to and from S3 buckets. Okay, right. So now, always the objects will be uploaded using the multi-part upload. Because of that, if you are using more than 160 GB, you have to use CLI SDK or some APIs or some third-party tools. You cannot use the browser if you are uploading the object which is more than 160 GB in size. Okay, and on this Amazon S3, we have a different types of storage classes available. On S3 service, we have a different storage classes available. I think let me list out all the storage classes today. So in the next session, we can discuss each and every storage class in detail. So if you see the EBS, we have a different types of EBS volumes, right? What is the use of that? Or what is the difference between different types of EBS volumes? Each and every volume will provide you different types of characteristics, right? One type of storage is SSD. One type of storage is HDD, and the general magnetic or standard, that is only used to store infrequently accessed data. In the same way, on Amazon S3 service, we have different storage classes available. Few people will call it as a storage tier also. Each and every storage class is designed for a unique use case. First, let us list out all the storage classes today. The first one is a standard storage class. The second one is standard IA. The third one is intelligent tier. One zone IA. Then we have a Glacier. In the Glacier, we have a different storage classes available. Glacier Instant Retrieval, Glacier Instant Retrieval, Glacier Flexible Retrieval, and the third one is, what is the third one? Is it Glacier Archive? Give me a second. Earlier, there used to be only two classes, but recently they introduced the instant retrieval. Because of that, they modified that. They changed the names also. They changed the names of the storage classes. Yeah, it's a Glacier Deep Archive. I said like Glacier Archive, right? That is called as a Glacier Deep Archive. Earlier, these two combinedly available as a Glacier. In the last December or so, they introduced, they divided that Glacier into two things. instant retrieval and flexible retrieval. And finally, we have reduced redundancy storage, which is not recommended by Amazon itself. We call it as RRS, reduced redundancy storage. These are the different storage classes or the storage types available on Amazon S3. Each and every storage class is designed for unique use case. So wherever you see the IA stands for infrequent access. By seeing the name itself, we can understand the use case of the storage class. What is the meaning of infrequent access? That might be designed for the data which is infrequently accessed, right? So what might be this one? What is the one zone? Just I'm trying to give you the overview. One zone means your data will be stored in only one availability zone. That means in other storage classes, your data might be stored in multiple availability zones. Exactly the same thing, how they will work. Intelligent tier. It was introduced like 2 years back. Before that, there is no such intelligent tier. So let us discuss about each and every storage class in detail, because that might take complete one full session to discuss about all the storage classes. So in the tomorrow session, we can discuss about each and every storage class, and we will upload the objects into each and every storage class. We will create like 6 or 7 text files, and we will upload each and every file into each and every storage class. And then we can see how they will be available. And for every storage class, durability is the same, but the availability is different. And on few storage classes, there is a special charge called retrieval charges. And there are few storage classes in which you cannot access your objects instantly. You have to wait for some time to access your objects also. So all these differences and the different characteristics of each and every storage class, we can discuss in the tomorrow's session. Okay. So before closing the session, are you guys clear on the S3 or any questions? If you have any questions on the S3 service, you can ask now. And if you are clear, you guys can leave. Tomorrow we can continue with the storage classes on S3 service.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
So, I have a query on these differences between the block storage and the normal storage. So, if we take a computer, we have drives, hard disk where we can place objects as well as operating system both together.
That's correct. That's correct.
So, when it comes to cloud, why it is different and how far it is not supporting operating system on normal storage?
But your hard disk this is not a normal storage, right? S3 is object-based storage. You cannot,
Okay.
that is purely to store the objects, not for operating system installation or software installation. In the EBS, that is a block-based storage, which you can use for all purpose, like installing, storing the data and everything.
So if we see these images which are on Amazon, which are like AMI and other
Okay.
images.
Mhm.
So those are technically speaking, those are hosted on block storages or S3 kind of storages, because
That
those are also.
image will be stored in S3 bucket in the backend. You cannot see directly. They will use
Uh,
S3 storage to store all your images and snapshots, because image is considered as an object, right? A single
hmm.
file. So that is called as an object.
So you mean to say that operating system can also be stored on S3, converting it to an image and
Once it
okay,
got converted into image, there is no more operating system. Just there's an
okay.
object, single file.
But when we run the image, it acts as an operating
One
system.
second. So you can download ISO, right?
Yeah,
ISO image. I cannot
yeah.
say that is an operating system. That is just a file which contains
Hmm.
operating system. If I use that
Yeah,
CD and I cannot use the operating system, right? That's just a software kind of a thing. I have to install the
sure.
software and then only that operating system will be in action.
Okay.
Just even in this case also, you can store the operating system files as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you have a C drive, which is 30
Mm-hmm.
GB. You can copy
Okay.
all the files and you can upload into S3 bucket. But what is the use? They will be available as a files, right?
Yeah. So, just to understand it deeply,
Mhm.
how far this ISOs or images are different with operating system? I mean, when we are running an image on a kernel, it is acting as an operating system.
Yes.
So, those file wise, if we understand it on a layman term, how we should consider it as like ISO?
ISO only contains the what we call that operating system, right?
Hmm.
AMI can contain operating system and softwares also. That depends on your, like if you are aware of like some virtualization, VMware or something, they will create
Hmm.
some their own templates, right?
Yeah.
What is the use of that? Instantly they
Oh,
can deploy operating system, data, softwares, everything. Even
okay.
if you go for a company, they don't use the ISOs. By using the
Yeah.
ISO, they can create their own template, which by using which they can deploy the operating system into any machine automatically.
So ISO will have such codes which can be used to create those files as an operating system. You mean to
Yes,
say
the
that?
same thing will be available in the image also.
Okay, okay. All right.
Just
And
terms are different. The terminology is different. That's it.
but the functionality is same.
Same, yeah.
And what is the use case, sir, on a cloud or engineering wise on AWS? What is the use of S3 bucket?
To store the object, simple thing. Let us say
Uh,
there are different use cases. Let us say you have to upload some images for your
hmm,
website.
hmm.
So where we can store?
Okay.
So you can store in this way. Like you can compare like Google Drive, Dropbox, some kind of storage.
So for hosting websites, we
Anything. There
can.
are different
Yeah.
use cases. Going forward,
Okay.
just we can discuss about all the things. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bucket की charging just store చేసే data की charge స్టాండర్డ్ లోనే అప్లోడ్ చేయండి వేరే స్టోరేజ్